All right, everybody ready? Well, y'all, thank you for being here again. Here's another one of our regular reports. And as I start off, let me say that we are all, speaking for all of Team South Carolina, we're very proud of the way the citizens have responded to our urgings and warnings and information. This has been a plan that has gone according to the way it was devised. The hurricane gave us a little break by going in slightly another direction from what was planned, but it's still a dangerous storm. There's still a lot of danger out there, and we will provide some details on that through those that you see here. First, from the meteorologist, John Quillerero, if you will, please, sir. There he is.
Thank you, Governor.
Thank you, sir.
All right, as of 2 o'clock, Tropical Storm Irma still had wind speeds of 60 miles an hour with some higher gusts. It was located about 50 miles south-southeast of Albany, Georgia. The tropical storm force winds now extend 415 miles northeast of the center, and that's why we're seeing pretty high winds across part of the state, which I'll detail here in a moment. One of the biggest issues right now across the state is the ongoing inundation along the coast, especially along the central and southern portion of the South Carolina coast. The tide gauge in Charleston Harbor has already surpassed Hurricane Matthew levels and is at its third highest level on record and still rising as of 2 o'clock. Storm surge inundation is already about 4 feet in the Charleston area. On top of that, we have a lot of heavy rain occurring in downtown Charleston as we've had one of the rain bands from Irma continue to move onshore in that area. Because of that, there's a flash flood emergency right now for the Charleston area. Widespread flooding has been reported in some areas. The combination of extremely high tides combined with heavy rain has resulted in widespread dangerous flooding throughout downtown Charleston. Areas from Calhoun Street south to the Battery are severely flooded. Travel into the downtown Charleston area is not advised due to the dangerous flooding conditions. There are also numerous other flash flood warnings in effect for southeast South Carolina. Remember, turn around, don't drown. Get out of areas subject to flooding and get to higher ground immediately. In terms of wind, so far we've seen the highest wind gust with 72 miles an hour at Folly Beach. We've also had a report of 68 mile an hour winds at Sullivan's Island and 66 miles per hour in Beaufort. Winds will peak this afternoon and evening, then diminish overnight into Tuesday. One of the other big concerns we have is for tornadoes. There's a tornado watch in effect until 10 p.m. for southeast South Carolina. We've also already seen numerous tornado warnings, especially in the Charleston area. The threat for tornadoes will continue throughout the day and into the evening hours. If you're under a tornado warning, we ask everyone to go to an interior room on the lowest level of your home and stay away from windows. And make sure that you have more than one way of receiving warnings. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you. So here's some numbers for you from around the state. The South Carolina Department of Transportation has 2,081 people out there right now clearing roads already, even though the storm is still here. We have 83 road closures in 7 counties. National Guard has 746 guardsmen on duty right now. There are 100 extra troopers out there right now assisting law enforcement. There are 101 state guardsmen on duty right now. We have 369 SLED agents, probation, pardon, and parole agents, and Department of Natural Resource agents on duty right now. Also, we now have 25 shelters open. As of noon today, there were 885 evacuees, that is, people in those shelters, and the capacity, as you know, is over 13,000. So we have plenty of capacity in the shelters, and that's for anyone who needs it, including people from Georgia and Florida. We also have 25 county governments closed today, and we have 33 counties that contain school districts that are closed today. As I mentioned a moment ago, this is still a dangerous storm, and in the last few hours, we've seen the storm surge hit the coast at high tide, which makes it even higher. It is a dangerous storm surge, as you can see from looking at pictures from local reports. The high winds will also be dangerous. We've seen a video of law enforcement at Edisto Beach, for example, taking risks, high risk, to rescue a group of people in an automobile in a storm surge there. It was overtaking their car and choked down and wouldn't run. There's no need to put yourself, your family, or the safety of the first responders at risk during this dangerous storm. So we're asking everyone, especially along the coast, to stay inside even after it stops raining. Do not attempt to drive this afternoon. The roads are dangerous. Rising water, flash floods can come out of anywhere very quickly. There will likely be some tornado warnings issued in various parts of the state. We urge everyone to stay away from downed power lines or anything that looks like a downed power line. Trees and limbs with downed power lines in them. Some may be underwater. You can't see them. They're hidden. There may be holes in streets under the water. There may be debris in streets under the water. So don't walk, don't drive down those streets. Power outages. Right now, across the state, there are 146,784 meter power outages. That is, there are that many meters, 146,784 that are out across the state. The largest of these outages are in Charleston, Beaufort, Berkeley, Lexington, and Richland counties. But right now, there are linesmen out in the storm from the various companies working to restore power. SCE&G has 2,582 people out there working to restore power. The electric co-ops have 250 crews out there, and Duke Power has 6,000 people out there working across the Carolinas. That's North and South Carolina. Re-evacuation and re-entry. Re-evacuation and re-entry. Those decisions have not been made yet, and that will depend on the conditions and the input from the local authorities in the various counties and cities. The decision to lift the evacuation order for the barrier islands, that is those that we listed along the coast, will be made in close consultation with the local emergency management and law enforcement officials. While the storm may have passed, the evacuation cannot be lifted until it's safe for people to return. This will include considerations like road safety, power and water availability, downed trees, and power lines. State and local law enforcement officers, along with armed National Guardsmen, continue to patrol the evacuated barrier islands. So let me make this clear. We have no tolerance. We have no tolerance for those who would try to take advantage of this situation created by the storm for personal gain. Any looters, thieves, or others causing harm will be arrested immediately and prosecuted to the fullest extent allowed by law. Now I'd like to call on General Livingston, National Guard. General?
Thank you, Governor. National Guard continues to be partnered with the counties, law enforcement, and South Carolina DOT to provide security presence, wellness checks, and to eventually get into route clearance as the storm moves through. Our troops going to Florida leave tomorrow about 7 o'clock in the morning, headed to help our neighbors in the south. The citizens need to be aware that we will have quite a number of military movements through South Carolina throughout the day. So if you would have patience with those military units moving through and have some good courtesy for them, they're going down to help our neighbors down south in Georgia and Florida. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you, General. Kim Stinson, Emergency Management Division.
Thank you, Governor. Our priorities here at the State Emergency Operations Center have been revised a little bit. Right now, our primary priority is sheltering and initial response in support of the counties, and then also planning for damage assessment and reentry as time goes on. We've got EMD personnel in Aiken, Anderson, Beaufort, Charleston, Colleton, Jasper, and Georgetown to affect coordination throughout the period. There's currently 28 county emergency operations center that is open here statewide. And as we've already talked about, many of our counties have been impacted with power outages, downed trees, and road situations. And that's all the way up from along our western border with Georgia, all the way east to at least Georgetown. And we continue to actively support local authorities with resources as they need them. Our most likely response requests are probably going to be right now assistance with debris management and power generation. And we'll work closely with the counties on that. I would also like to remind the citizens of our disaster hotline that we have, and that's at 1-866-246-0133. And that's a great resource. If you have any questions on any subject that's going on right now in South Carolina, we'll get you the answer for that. Sir, thank you.
Thanks, sir. Chief Keel, SLED, please.
As the governor says, we've got 369 state law enforcement and National Guardmen continue to patrol those areas that were evacuated. I've been in personal contact with all the sheriffs in both the central counties along the coast and those in the lower counties along the coast this morning to make sure that they had every request that they had was met. Generally what we're hearing from them is a number of trees down, roads closed, and flooding seems to be their biggest concern. We will continue to provide assistance to them and those patrols to them until this event is over. Thank you,
Thanks,
Governor.
sir. Department of Transportation, Deputy Secretary Leland Colvin.
Thank you, Governor.
Yes, sir.
As the Governor mentioned, we have 83 roads in 7 counties closed as of 1:30 today. We certainly expect that number to go up. And for live, real-time information, you can go to our website at www.scdot.org. And on our Hurricane Irma banner, you can get real-time data on the road closures as well as an interactive map. As the Governor also mentioned, we have crews in all 46 counties ready to respond pending the weather. More specifically, in the southern coastal counties of Jasper, Colleton, and Beaufort counties, we have 20 road clearing crews ready to respond, as well as 10 damage assessment teams. Furthermore, we also have the high-level bridges in Charleston has been closed by local law enforcement due to high winds and will be reopened once those winds calm down. And finally, drivers, if you have to be on the roads, please be careful, especially on those exposed roadway and bridges because of the high winds. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you. Department of Public Safety,
Thank you,
Rick
Governor.
Smith.
Good afternoon, everyone. As the governor mentioned earlier, we have 100 additional DPS officers assigned to traffic management missions. Right now, the majority of our calls for service are for weather-related events, trees in the roadway, down power lines, and so forth. We have been planning for the re-entry of evacuees, so we expect to see an influx of traffic soon for those folks trying to make it back to their respective homes. And on a safety tip, I just would like to mention a couple of things. The governor did a great job highlighting some of those things. One other area, please do not drive around barricades. We know the problem that could bring if someone were to drive around a barricade. Those barricades are there for a reason. And as the governor mentioned earlier, please do not drive in standing water or in flooded areas. We don't know what's under those flooded areas. And again, I think our meteorologist, he highlighted the importance of turn around, don't drown, because we never know what's under that standing water. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you, sir. Emily Farr, Labor License and Regulation.
Thank you, Governor.
Yes,
South Carolina has a well-trained and very competent fire and rescue community, and thus far they have been able to handle the weather conditions and the flooding in their local areas. That being said, State Fire continues to stand ready to provide resources that may be needed as we move into the late afternoon and this evening. Firefighter mobilization is fully staffed and ready to respond to any requests. Mobilization coordinates to move search and rescue, firefighting, and other first responder personnel and resources needed throughout the state to provide backup and support to the local areas if they need additional assistance. So mobilization is ready to do that as may be needed as the day progresses. At the Fire Academy here in Columbia, we do have 2 crews of rescue swimmers who are ready to work with the National Guard for any South Carolina HART missions. That's the helicopter aquatic rescue teams. Missions once the winds die down if that's necessary, or they're also ready to mobilize on the ground for boat rescues as well. As we have power outages continue throughout the state, I'll turn over to the State Fire Marshal, Chief Jonathan Jones, to provide some very important safety tips for the public. Jonathan.
Fire Marshal.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Always ensure that if you're using a generator in a power outage that the exhaust is directed away from openings in your house, such as doors or windows. Please never run a generator inside your home or in garages. Never use outdoor grills indoors. And if possible, use battery-powered auxiliary lighting instead of candles. But if you must use candles, please make sure that you never leave a candle unattended. Make sure that you use appropriate and sturdy candle holders. Extinguish candles before you go to bed. And please make sure that you keep candles away from other combustible materials. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Alvin Taylor, Department of Natural Resources.
Thank you, Governor.
Yes, sir.
Department of Resources officers are embedded along the coast now, ready to respond to any missions, life-saving missions that we may be there. We are currently patrolling, or will be patrolling, the Barrier Islands by water. We know we've had some flooding conditions, and we're in contact with local EOCs and emergency personnel to respond to those as needed. So we're ready to go. We're in place. We would ask, it's not too early, I don't think, to ask our boaters that when the storm subsides and it's clear again, to stay off the water, because we've seen there have been docks damaged and there'll be vessels that are underwater, and that's just another hazard. Also, if you're in a boat and you're looking at damage and there's water in homes, your wake from your boats as a sightseer could cause more damage to those homes, and we do not need that. So we would ask our boaters to stay off the water. We're also in the process of DNR responding to Florida, and we will have 50 officers with boats and rescue equipment pulling out tomorrow morning to go to Florida to assist our neighbors in Florida. Governor, that's all I have.
Thank you, Colonel. David Wilson with DHEC.
Thank you, Governor. The department has opened 4 special needs, medical special needs shelters in the counties of Colleton, Hampton, Orangeburg, and Sumter. We also are continuing to operate our care line to assist the public and the clients of our health county departments that are closed right now. That care line number is 1-800-868-0404. Again, 1-800-868-0404. We will begin post-storm assessments of high-priority dams across the state as the storm lifts tomorrow. In the interim, we are manning a 24-hour hotline for dam owners to report problems they may have. That number is 803-898-1939. Again, 803-898-1939. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you, sir. From FEMA, Mr. Willie Nunn.
Thank you, Governor.
Yes, sir.
We continue to be focused on the state's priorities of initial response, the also sheltering, reentry, and damage assessments. And we also still co-located here with the team to make sure that whatever requirements that come from Tropical Storm Irma in that flash flooding or any other type storm surge, we're here to make sure that any federal support that's needed, we can provide it. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you, sir. Duke Scott.
Thank you, Governor. As the governor said, we've got about 146,000 meters out as we came in. SC&G had about 93,000 of those. Duke had about 4,300. Santee Cooper had 1,000. and the electric cooperatives combined had 48,000. The largest outages, of course, would be Charleston would be at 36,629, Beaufort 32,400, Lexington 11,900, and Richland 8,000, and Aiken about 8,000. The crews will be, as he said, we've got thousands of crew people out there, I think over 9,000. You'll see them back out there as soon as it's safe to go back out. There's limitations on when you can use a bucket truck and those types of things, but as soon as they can get back out there safely, you'll see them out there, you'll see them working. We ask you, you're going to appreciate them, but as you'd be better off not trying to take them cookies and stuff. Let them get the work done, then give them the cookies and that type of thing. We've got no issues reported regarding fuel at this time. Thank you, Governor.
Okay, thank you very much. And finally, Department of Social Services, Susan Allen.
Thank you, Governor. The Department of Social Services, along with our partners, the American Red Cross, Salvation Army, the National Guard, SLED, and other law enforcement agencies, are currently supporting 25 general population shelters across the state. As the Governor has already indicated, we have more than 800 residents in those shelters right now, but we have the capacity for over 13,000 shelters. So we would encourage any citizens of South Carolina, if you at all feel unsafe in your residences or uncomfortable in these current weather conditions, that you consider an open shelter as a possible resource for you, but also evacuees from Georgia, from Florida. You're welcome to come to our shelters that are open, and we have the capacity for you now. So we would encourage folks to come to any of our open shelters. Just to make sure our citizens know and are aware of where these shelters are located, I'm going to actually go through each one of them with you so that we can let everyone know which open shelters are available in your area. In Allendale, we have one open shelter at the Allendale Elementary School. In Anderson County, we have one shelter open at the Anderson Civic Center. This shelter was actually open to support evacuees from Georgia, but it's open to anyone that needs shelter during the storm. In Bamberg County, we have one shelter open at the Richard Carroll Elementary School. In Beaufort County, we have two shelters, one at Bluffton High School and one at Beaufort High School. In Calhoun County, we have one shelter at the Calhoun County High School in St. Matthews. In Charleston County, we have two shelters open. They're both on Leeds Avenue in North Charleston at the Coastal Pre-Release Center and in the facility right next door to it, the county facility that's run by Charleston. In Clarendon County, we have three shelters, one at Manning High School, one at East Clarendon High School at Turbyville, and Scotch Branch High School in Somerton. In Colleton County, we have one shelter open at Colleton Middle School. In Jasper, we have one shelter open at Ridgeland High School with a capacity of 1,100. In Kershaw County, we have one shelter open at Camden High School. In Newberry County, we opened a shelter today at 2 o'clock at the Newberry High School. In Orangeburg County, we have 4 shelters open. Those shelters are located at Orangeburg Wilkinson High School, Lake Marion High School in Santee, Hunter Kynard Tyler Elementary at Nieces, and Branchville High School. In Richland County, we have one shelter open at Denton Middle School. In Sumter County, we have one shelter open at Crestwood High School. And finally, in Williamsburg County, we have 4 shelters open. These shelters are at C.E. Murray High School in Greeleyville, Kingstree Senior High at the East Campus, Hemingway High School, and the D.P. Cooper School in Salters. So again, we would just encourage anyone that feels uncomfortable during the storm and is in need of shelter to please consider one of our 25 open shelters as a resource. Our staff stands ready to help any of our evacuees, and you can check that list of open shelters throughout the day on the South Carolina Emergency Division website. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Sir,
Do you mind if I?
please.
Wanted to reemphasize one thing, and this is the safety issue. Stay at your home. Don't get out there and sightsee. Don't go up and down the water in your boat. Director Farr talked about the aquatic rescue teams. All of our aviation is grounded right now because of winds. Director Taylor talked about boat rescue teams. We're talking about swift rising tides that put everyone at risk. even some of the areas we cannot get high water vehicles in. So what we ask you to do is don't put yourself at risk and don't put our rescuers at risk. We'll try to come get you, but it's going to be a very high-risk operation, so please stay home. Thank you, Governor.
Yes, sir. Any questions? Questions?
Yes, you mentioned rescue earlier. Is that the only emergency rescue that's taken place, and can you tell us a little bit more about it?
General? Would you like to start with that?
Well, I'll start. As far as I know, that is the only emergency rescue that we've had. Of course, there may be some things going on in local areas, but Chief, you got anything, or Director Taylor?
As far as I know, that is the only rescue at this time, but information is coming in, and we're expecting all of our officers to be back on the water real soon. There's a lot of high water now, and we'll have better information later.
We saw that one on television, so that's how we know about that one so immediately.
Do we know anything about the erosion that we're facing along the coast?
Well, we know there will be some because these tides are just about precisely as predicted, between 3 to 6 feet or 4 to 6 feet, and it looks like when all the high tides are through and they're a little bit delayed, that is the receding of the tide is delayed because of the winds and the water, of the force of the water and the winds, but that will probably be right on the money. And with tides like that, you're always going to have some erosion. Now, how bad it'll be, we don't know. But we're not so much worried about erosion right now as the safety of the people.
For SCDOT, do we know the cause of the road closures? Is it mainly flooding, or is it those trees coming down?
So of the 83 bridges, 83 roadways, about 2/3 of those were caused by trees and about 1/3 caused by water. But as the rain continues to fall, we expect more closures to come into play. And again, go to our website and look for that for real-time information. We have that information online.
Thank you.
Of the National Guardsmen and DNR officers going to assist in Florida, do we know what kind of mission or what kind of work they'll be doing?
General?
From the National Guard perspective, we'll be doing mainly security missions and wellness checks for the people down at this point just north of Tampa.
Colonel Taylor?
From a DNR perspective, we'll be carrying our boating equipment for still high water rescue, especially in those out of the way areas, away from populated areas, along with ATV all-terrain vehicles for rural search and rescue.
Next question.
Do you know when you will talk to the local emergency officials to get a sense of when people can return back to Hilton Head, et cetera?
Yes, ma'am. We've been talking to them nonstop ever since this began for days now, but we can't not give an estimate as to when we will do that at this point, but we'll let you know as soon as we can do so.
If residents come across lights or traffic lights at major intersections that are out, should they contact anybody with certain numbers, or what should they do?
Yes, they should.
Yes, sir. We have a 24-hour hotline. It's Go DOT, Go SCDOT. If you can make the phone call to there, we'll get our signal crews out there. In addition to our bridge inspectors and our road clearing crews, we certainly have our signal crews ready to go as soon as the wind will allow us.
Next question.
Are officials from Florida and Georgia asking you to send a message to evacuees here in the state? Are they requesting that they stay put?
Well, we've been trying to do that through the welcome centers as well as through these broadcasts and other information about the availability of shelters and also the road information. Yes. Next question.
Just to confirm, there aren't any fatalities related to Irma?
Not in South Carolina, not that we know of at this time.
And for Director Smith, how about accidents?
As of now, we do not have any storm-related fatalities. We have one of our Majors, and his role is to contact the coroners. We've been in contact with the coroners, and as hopefully we won't have any storm-related fatalities. If we do, we will communicate with the coroners, and they will rule it as either storm-related or not storm-related. And if ruled as storm-related, we'll be sure to report that information to you all.
I know that crews can't go out to service power lines at this time until it's safe. Do we have a timeline of when the storm is going to pass and we can start seeing some of those repairs?
No, ma'am, we don't, but we're ready, as been indicated, the personnel all over the state primed and ready to go, and of course with law enforcement, they're operating right now. Next question.
Do we have any idea how many of the evacuees, this might be for DSS, in the shelters are South Carolinians, and how many have come from Florida and Georgia?
Good question.
I don't have any firm numbers of that, but we are aware that the majority are actually in-state residents as opposed to out-of-state. But we're now actually collecting those numbers so we can give those to the governor, so we'll know exactly what the situation has been so far.
And Governor, we discovered just a few minutes before coming out here, before you all came out here, that a tree had fallen onto an apartment building that you own.
That's right.
In Columbia.
I discovered it too, about the same time you did.
You know, obviously that shows the governor is not immune from the effects of the storm. What have you heard about it, and what's your message for the folks that are staying there?
Well, it's those are college students there, and there's several buildings there, and there's a large oak tree that nobody suspected might fall that did, and it affects 2 of the apartments, and those people are being accommodated, and we're having the engineers over there and the fire departments over there. But that's what everybody's going to face when a big limb or a tree falls on your property, and it can happen anywhere. We didn't expect that at all because of the size of that tree and the strength of that tree. There's some others we thought we'd see around town that we'd expect to fall. They haven't fallen, but that one did.
As far as you're aware, everyone who lives in that building is safe and accounted for?
Oh yeah, they're safe and accounted for, certainly. Yes.
Would you know if schools are going to be operating on a regular schedule again tomorrow?
That will be, I don't know that we have that precise information, but those are local decisions that will be made by the school districts and the counties. Any more questions? Well, thank you very much for coming. And thank you all too. Thank you.